Hi, I'm Patrick Fredericks, GDIT's offering owner for AI Ops. Today we're going to talk about robotic process automation, generative AI, and its impact to ITSM operations across the technical enterprise. Joining me today is Arun, my esteemed colleague. Welcome.
Thank you.
You want to introduce yourself, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. My name is Arun Kumar Iyer, but Arun is good. I am a principal executive architect and a field CTO for ServiceNow, covering the federal space, both civilian and DoD. I help customers maximize the value of the platform. So I think we're going to talk about AI ops and what we're seeing in that space. So go ahead.
Yeah, so first I want to talk about robotic process automation, or RPA. So as a system integrator, we've been working for quite some time on RPA type solutions for our customers. And I wanted to understand from your perspective, what has changed in this space in the last few years?
I think what has changed is the increased adoption, right? The increased adoption because you're able to bridge the gap between different tools, technologies, and products across the evolution of the technologies, because you have legacy systems which don't have APIs, and you have newer systems which are expecting everything to work over the internet. And now you have on-prem versus the cloud. So all of this, you're depending on the individual who's at the terminal to make that choice on where to go to do the certain activities and functions. And we call that swivel chair integration. So now we're able to get over that with RPA. So that's the way I'm looking at that evolution.
So Arun, when with Gen AI right in our midst and right around the corner on the horizon, how is Gen AI going to change how we look at RPA from a technology perspective?
I think the RPA is a technology that's kind of bridging the gap between different systems. But Gen AI is providing the information on which you're making the decisions. So that's how I think Gen AI is going to help the entire ecosystem of that solution, because what you're referring to is now getting better results rather than having to look through and pour through different documents. You're getting a summarized information, or the underlying data is being presented in a more consumable fashion. So that's how I would look at it.
So let's switch now to a related but slightly different topic. Let's talk about dynamic automation and AI ops. And we're starting to see some solutions evolve to include more of AI capabilities. Can you talk a little bit about distinguishing what dynamic automation is in the context of AI ops and how it's affecting our solutions that we're delivering?
Yeah, I think a lot of the focus has always been on trying to keep the service levels. So when you talk about service levels, everybody talks about MTTR, or mean time to repair, and how soon can you fix a problem. But I think what AI ops is able to do is to shift left. You're saying, mean time to detect, how soon can you find the problem? Because once you find the problem, solving it is rather easy, I'm saying, in the scale. So mean time to detect is where AI and AI ops is going to help, because you're now using data from your repositories and the log files and everywhere to kind of determine what are the patterns, how that pattern is not the same as before, meaning anomaly detection. Or if you know the patterns, how can you use a solution that you used before? So mean time to detect, mean time to acknowledge, and then mean time to repair. So that's the progression, and that's all something that AI can facilitate, because you're able to assign, you're able to, if you look at the whole progression of AI ops, going from reactive to responsive to intelligent to self-healing, that's all based on use of AI in your environment. So that's how I kind of look at the entire evolution.
Arun, something you said really excited me, because many customer visits I've been on recently, I've heard from our customers they desperately want us to shift from being reactive to proactive, using the tools we have in the environment to do so. So when you look at AI ops and you look at how it intersects with ITSM processes such as problem management or incident management, how is the automation solutions that are available today evolving to that over-the-horizon capability that we all seek?
Yeah, so I think you brought up ITSM, and that's kind of based on the ITIL framework. So there is a discipline of how data is gathered and can be used standard across the board. So when you look at the problem management and the incidents kind of going at a certain pace now because everything is automated, your monitoring tools and everything are around the ITSM space is sending in many incidents. You've got volumes of incidents. So it's humanly very impractical to sift through all of this and find root cause analysis. You use Gen AI and things like case summarization. Now you don't have the operator or even automation having to go through so much data and then glean that information versus using Gen AI to give you a summary. So that speeds up decision making for the solution. And that's where we're seeing some of the applications of Gen AI, right? So I think that's how we have to approach it. Again, I go back to the fact that the underlying data that needs to be collected in a standard fashion for you to be able to solve that problem.
So data consistency, which you're talking about, is a big impediment to solutioning across a tool ecosystem. Can you talk a little bit about how ITSM platforms can handle deduplication of data and providing cleaning up that feed of telemetry that's coming in to really get you to an authoritative source of truth in your CMDB?
Yeah, so I think you bring up a very good point because I'll give you a kind of a use case scenario. Typically some system has an outage and nobody has yet determined where the problem is, but everybody is sending in incidents. And if you have a help desk who has to deal with this volume of data coming in, now you have many incidents about the same thing.
And that's the human as the sensor, right?
Correct.
Not the tool.
Now, if you kind of get to the more intelligent solution, you can determine that this new incident coming in is something that I've already registered and not create another instance of it and keep them all as a group. That grouping is something that's available in predictive intelligence. Saying, oh, I see a pattern here. It is the same IP or the same CI or it is the same pattern.
In the same geography.
So I'm going to now say these are all the same thing. So when you go send it to problem management and they're doing root cause analysis, one solution will take care of a whole host of incidents. So those are some of the ways where predictive intelligence, the automation can help the help desk burden and automation. Now, if you take it to the next level where the system understands that I've seen this problem before, let me go look at the historical data and use that to assign it to the certain group. Now you come to the next level. You see that and then you say, oh, the solution I had for this particular problem when I assigned to this group, I know what that solution is. So when we talked about reactive, responsive, intelligent, and self-healing, you can actually fire off that solution and it's all hands-free. That's utopia. It's not easy to get there, but it's crawl, walk, run, fly. So that's how I think we'd go about it.
All right, let's dig in a little bit on intelligent monitoring. So we talk about alert fatigue across large organizations. I recently visited a customer and sat down and mapped out some use cases for AI ops, and not surprisingly, they were not very high-end automation. They were really focused on how do I replace the human in the chair, as you said, the swivel, right? From being detecting if there's an outage of a service and running through a checklist of things every 4 hours to determine if there's a failure. So when we look at AI ops and we look at how we're going to leverage the entire tool chain, how do we look at broadening the capabilities so that we can be much more reactive in the context of service level agreements and maintaining those agreements for our customers? Yeah,
so I think one of the problems we have in the current environments that we see in the customer space is that we are not in the age where there was a couple of physical servers and somebody could watch that at a knock and saying, oh, I see this is happening and let me know and let me take corrective action. The volumes are huge. And we are in the cloud where there are not necessarily physical servers. It's serverless. It's platform as a service, software as a service. You have containers, and all of these are very dynamic. You don't have, like I have, 100 servers. It's not 100 servers. There are servers that have very transient existence because now we are in the cloud. So in that kind of a scenario, setting thresholds itself is a problem. And when you set a threshold, you're doing it for a certain set of parameters, and that is static. So now you have to get into a place where you do dynamic setting of thresholds.
Which setting the thresholds, that's based on what you understand of the current ConOps of the environment and what is happening today. It does not help you what's happening for tomorrow. So let's talk a little bit about the tomorrow and how the dynamicism affects the actual alerting thresholds, and dig a little deeper in there.
Yeah, so I think the way we have to look at it is that the thresholds, like you just mentioned, it's based on our knowledge today. So let's let loose AI on it and let that predictive intelligence make the decisions on changing the thresholds. And normally when you have raw data, you don't even see trends unless you take it to analytics and then put it through. Whereas let's have AI do that work where it looks at trends and saying, oh, this is not trending in the right direction based on the patterns that we see. So change the threshold, because it may be seasonality, it may be surge, it may be different reasons that humans are not going to be able to make those changes at that pace. So let's give it to AI to say, now you take care of these things. And like we talked about earlier, even the assignment groups of who needs to solve this problem, that's also dynamic, because now you know what is available and you've seen the pattern, so have AI do the automatic work assignments.
But how good is AI actually finding these anomalies? Can it really replace a well-trained and seasoned system admin?
I think in the eventual state, yes. But I think I like to use the example of human in the loop, human on the loop, and human out of the loop. Yeah. So when you look at that progression, human out of the loop is a little far yet, in my opinion. Okay, and I'm not speaking for any organization or it's my own experience and seeing what's happening in the industry. But human in the loop is definitely achievable. So what you're doing is you are using AI to provide information to the individual to assist them in decision making and not making the decision yourself.
So decision support.
Exactly.
Providing decision support to the individual responsible for the service level.
Yeah. But as an SI, you might have seen some of this as well, I mean, in your space. And
so we have a lot of customers that ask for automation. And then when we sit down and talk about use cases, what they're really looking for is orchestration. So we leverage the ITSM platform to be the front door for the human being to orchestrate. We haven't quite gotten to a level of comfort where the system, whether it's AI or it's just going to be RPA, having domain to take an action without having a human triggering it. So the human in the loop is still today's business, I would say, and the human out of the loop, where they just get notified that something happened and something got fixed, I still see as over the horizon capability.
Yeah, I think I want to bring up a point here, because I totally agree with the approach that you're taking, because you guys are the ones who are solving the problem at the customer, and one of the things that if you look at LLMs, which is where a lot of these Gen AI solutions kind of reside, you want to take LLMs which are domain specific.
Right.
And not, ChatGPT is the shiny new object and everybody talks about that. But the real solutions are when you have domain specific LLMs, which now the part that we were talking about, that, the solution is not taking over the domain, but if the LLM is domain specific, now you have more relevant decision support information coming back, and you're avoiding all the hallucinations, which is the biggest kind of hesitation for people to take on Gen AI, right? So you try to make it trustworthy, because now it's a local domain-specific LLM. So that's one of the ways I think I would say.
I agree, and I think one example of that might be like an AI chatbot capability that's informed by knowledge articles written by the technical staff. More often than not, we find that the maturity of the knowledge management practice is not what it needs to be, but that AI chatbot is a desired capability. So what are you seeing help bridge the gap in a place where an organization's knowledge management practices are not as mature as maybe they need to be to create the LLM for the chatbot, but there's other data that's available to an ITSM platform that may be the front door for the service organization and the user consuming that tier 0 service to achieve that level of capability. How do you account for a knowledge practice that's maybe not as mature as it would be?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's happening, and I've been in some discussions around this with other kind of sessions like this, looks like the funding for the standard things that you would do normally is being cannibalized by Gen AI because it's a new thing and everybody wants to go there. But I think you lose sight of the fact that Gen AI depends on the data. So my recommendation has been to use the building blocks of a Gen AI solution, and the underlying building block is getting your data right. So the knowledge practice and using Gen AI to create knowledge articles. I'll give you a case in point. If you have an incident and you have many incidents, you start looking at a pattern there, you can generate a summary using Gen AI. And a lot of the platforms now will give you that. And when you get that summary, use that to automatically create an article. So you're not depending on humans to take that step of creating the article. You are using Gen AI in multiple steps to create that knowledge base. And it's all your data, so you don't have to worry about hallucinations because it's not coming from some third party.
So speaking of hallucinations though, you would want a human to review those KBs before they get activated in the knowledge base.
Right. So I think there are these steps that you'll see in platforms where you do the case summarization, but at that point, talking about human in the loop, the individual gets an opportunity to edit, correct, but then hits another button to create the article. So they are in the loop and getting an opportunity to review. Now, once you get comfortable with that process and there's more maturity, you can take the human from that step, you can take them out and keep them on the loop, which means that if there is any exception, they have an opportunity to kind of correct it. So that's how I think we would take it in progression.
So you mentioned ROI and building a data platform or building the data platform underneath the ITSM tooling. Let's talk a little bit about, you had shared a perspective that to not be necessarily specific use case focused at first, but maybe focus on building the data governance and the data platform so that future AI can be enabled by the ITSM platform. Can you talk a little bit more about why that approach is going to provide advantages to our customers in this space?
Yeah, so I think all of what we're talking about in terms of Gen AI is to use the information that we have in our environment, and it's secure, and it's not, one of the cybersecurity threats we have always had in terms of Gen AI is the underlying data could be poisoned, and then whatever Gen AI is doing is based
it
on
wouldn't know any better.
It won't know.
It will not know any better.
So protecting that data, the data governance, using that data with the kind of a standard, consistent approach and a discipline, that's all within the organization. A technology is not going to give you that because the data is what the organization owns and what they curate and how they say what is relevant to them. So that data program, I think, is important, whether you do it inside the platform or whether it's some other effort. What you make available to Gen AI, that's the responsibility inside the organization. Now, you may have sources that you get from the outside, but you have to make judicious decisions on how to include that in your decision making. So that's the way I think you can use technology, be cautious. At the same time, those are building blocks.
So Arun, let's talk a little bit about modernized ITSM processes and leveraging the data governance and the data platform that's built within the ITSM tool. One of the things that we are seeing is that that shift from reactive to proactive, and when you dial into the ITSM processes, those workflows look a lot different. They have to leverage that data platform that's available within the ITSM tool. So what are you seeing from your perch about how those processes that are orchestrated in workflows are changing as it relates to the data that's being created in the platform in real time, and those processes are interacting and the workflows are interacting with that data to make a better service outcome for the customer, either maintaining a service level or shifting repair times to near zero, ensuring that we are getting mean time to repair lower.
Yeah, so I think in the predictive intelligence areas, there are these underlying algorithms that are made available, like similarity, clustering, regression, and so you're categorizing and grouping some of this data that's coming in, whether it's incidents from different tools in your environment. But those are all disparate. They have their own data models, they have their own technologies, but the data comes in. Now, normally you have to normalize it and then put it all together before you can start using it. But with these algorithms now, you're able to reduce that impact and make the workflows use that information for assignments, for healing, if you have that level of maturity. So it's a like I used the word or the phrase earlier, crawl, walk, run, fly. You have to let the platform learn. And even though we call it machine learning, then the machine learning needs time too. So you have to have data built up for use in automation. So that's the way I would kind of look at it in terms of the implementation and deployments across the continuum. So Patrick, I know we've been talking a lot about the platforms. Now, from a system integrator perspective, you see many different platforms and you see many different use cases. How do you make those choices? And when you're putting together a solution, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing in the customers asking you about Gen AI? And because everybody wants to be on that bandwagon. You want to share something from there?
Sure. So a lot of our customers, Arun, they first come to us with ask for an automation use case, and then as we sort of learn their environment and learn the challenges that they have, we have kind of learned through our practice that many customers are dealing with tool sprawl. So they have too many tools, too many investments, and they don't know which ones to divest in. And it's really a challenge because it's not just an AI ops challenge, it's a zero trust problem as well.
There you go.
So what we've been learning with our customers and solutioning with our customers as partners is that we need to evaluate all the tools in the ecosystem, understand what traits and attributes they provide to the AI ops capability set, but then also how it enables the zero trust achievement of capability. And so as a practitioner in AI ops, we have been looking at tool sprawl to solve their challenges, help them save money, but also we've been taking a look at mapping use cases to the specific areas of AI ops to help them navigate, because there's usually more than one way to create a solution for the customer.
Yeah, I mean, I think, coming from a platform company, our perspective is different, right? I mean, we try to solve everything on the platform, but as a system integrator, when you go out and see there are already existing platforms and tools and solutions, and then you start looking for some platform to bring everything in, and I guess that's where you're trying to give them economies of scale, as well as avoiding the impedance mismatch, as I call it, between the different tools. So I think it's challenging, and I think we are getting there slowly with trying to harmonize the environment, right? So
yeah, harmonize, but also take advantage of the fact that the organization sometimes is siloed and doesn't have a unified tool strategy that can inform zero trust, that can inform AI ops, that can inform SecOps,
right.
Which ITSM platforms offer a lot of capability in the SecOps realm as well. So when you think about security operations and AI, not new, using AI in cybersecurity operations, but what do you see as evolving in that space right now?
I think the part that we discussed earlier, where a single pane to see everything that's going on in the environment. So SecOps, that's a big challenge because there are specific tools that are addressing specific problems, and they do it well. But again, they are not able to provide one place to see everything that's going on in the environment. So the move to get that single pane from different tools and give actionable information, whether it's a dashboard or certain tasks that can be followed through, that's where I think people are trying to go towards. Again, that kind of also helps in training and expertise, morale of the teams, because now you're not depending on one individual or a set of individuals. If somebody moves to a different role, the time that you can make the new person productive is much less, because they're now dealing with what actions that they need to take based on the data that's coming and not understand each tool specifically. So that
you touched on visualization or single pane of glass. That's a very big topic in the AI ops space as well. One of the things that GDIT has learned quite a bit about SPOGs, in particular single pane of glass, like you mentioned, is that personas matter. Who's consuming the services is very important. Can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the evolution of that, and how Gen AI and automation is really bringing new data feeds available to single panes of glass for visualization?
Yeah, piggybacking on what you just mentioned, in my book, adoption is king. So if you don't have adoption, you're never going to see value realization. And the only way you can get adoption is if you're aware of the personas that are consuming the data. So I think that's like, when we think of what we've been talking about, that's where I would start. And that's my goal all the time, because I talk about value realization and maximizing the value of the platform. That's my starting point, and that's the KPI for me in every customer's environment, saying you can only get value if you have adoption. So be aware of your personas. So.
All right, well, let's wrap up for today, Arun. So we talked quite a bit about shifting from being reactive to proactive. We talked a little bit about how Gen AI is changing AI ops space, but also how it's impacting ITSM processes. What do you see as like what's next for the industry as we kind of tackle today's problems but get ready for tomorrow?
Yeah, so where we started this discussion was service availability. When the focus is service availability, then everything else is subordinate to that overall goal. And why is that the goal? Because an organization that's if it's a federal organization providing services to the constituents, or if it's a private sector organization that's providing in revenue generation, or if it's a state and local that is providing the services to their citizens, and there is cost avoidance because everybody's trying to do more with less. In all of these, you have to establish what is important. And when I say what is important is, we talk about outages and how outages cause loss of service, loss of morale, reputation, all these. People do not focus on what is important to bring back up. So there's an outage. How do you bring back up, or which systems do you bring back up first? Do you bring back up a timesheet system or your storefront? Do you bring back some social media server, or what services you're providing to your citizens? How do you know that? And for that, you have to kind of harmonize around what we call the common services data model. That's what we call it, but there's something like that in every organization, saying, these are my 10 top important systems for the existence of this organization. And I need to know everything about everything in this for these 10 systems, which is in the CMDB. So start like that, and then you can progress. And I think I see as the next step, because we have too many tools, like we mentioned earlier, that's bringing in data, but that signal to noise ratio, as we call it,
very high.
So we want to make sure that what's important is captured for decision making. That's how I would say every organization has to approach.
So it sounds like decision support is really the focus for the future.
Yep.
Thanks for joining me today, Arun. Great conversation. If you'd like to learn more, please join us at gdit.com/perspectives.